The sun hangs heavy over the Giza Plateau, casting long geometric shadows that have stretched across these sands for thousands of years. There is a silence here that feels thick, almost physical, as if the desert itself is holding its breath to protect a secret it was never meant to share. Thousands of miles away, amidst the humid emerald embrace of the Yucatan jungle, the same heavy silence clings to the limestone steppes of Chichen Itza. These are the graveyards of giants, places where the wind whispers through stone corridors that should not, by our current understanding of history, even exist. We are taught that the story of humanity is a straight ascending line, a climb from the primitive mud to the digital clouds. We believe we are the pinnacle, the smartest and most advanced version of ourselves to ever walk the earth. But as we stand in the shadow of these megalithic titans, a chilling paradox begins to emerge. What if the line of progress is not a ladder, but a circle? What if we are not the masters of innovation, but merely the amnesiacs of a forgotten golden age? Everywhere we look, we find what researchers call out-of-place artifacts. These are the glitches in our historical matrix, objects and structures that defy the technological capabilities of the eras they belong to. We see precision that mocks our modern tools and mathematical genius that predates the very invention of the calculator. It forces us to ask, did the ancients know something we have lost? Take, for example, the Great Pyramid of Giza. We often speak of it as a tomb, but its construction tells a much more complex story. The structure is composed of over 2 million stone blocks, some weighing as much as 80 tons. These were not just piled up. They were placed with a surgical accuracy that leaves modern engineers speechless. The original casing stones, polished white limestone that once made the pyramid shine like a star, were fitted together so tightly that you cannot slide a razor blade or even a human hair between them. There is no mortar holding them, only the perfection of the cut. How did a civilization supposedly limited to copper chisels and wooden rollers achieve a level of flat surface precision that we struggle to replicate today with industrial lasers? The mystery deepens when we look past the physical stones and into the numbers. The Great Pyramid is not just a building, it is a mathematical ghost. It encodes the dimensions of the Earth, the value of pi, and even the golden ratio into its very proportions. More disturbing is the alignment. The pyramid is oriented to true north with an accuracy of within 3/60ths of a degree. This isn't just good enough for ancient farmers, this is high-level geodetic surveying. Some even suggest that the coordinates of the pyramid, when translated into a specific numerical string, mirror the speed of light. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. How could a people who had not yet discovered the wheel manage to map the physics of the universe into a mountain of rock? This isn't an isolated Egyptian fluke. Across the globe, from the ziggurats of Mesopotamia to the soaring temples of Central America, we see a global blueprint. These civilizations were separated by vast oceans and thousands of miles of impassable terrain. Yet they all built pyramids. They all obsessed over the stars. They all used the same sophisticated masonry techniques that involve interlocking polygonal stones designed to withstand massive earthquakes. It is as if they were all reading from the same master manual, their hidden curriculum taught by a source we no longer recognize. We call them primitive because it is easier than admitting we might be inferior. Their work surpasses our modern durability. Our steel skyscrapers will crumble into dust in a few centuries, while their stone wonders endure for millennia. We are forced to wonder, was this knowledge truly lost to time, or was it something more sinister? What if this wisdom was never actually gone, but deliberately hidden away by those who fear what a truly enlightened humanity could become? Because what comes next, what lies beneath the shifting sands and the forgotten tablets, might be even more disturbing than the silence itself. The truth remains buried today. Leaving the Egyptian desert and traveling east toward the fertile crescent of Mesopotamia, we find the ruins of the Sumerians. Here, etched into thousands of clay tablets, lies a celestial knowledge that defies the limits of the Bronze Age. We find star charts that depict our solar system with a startling modern accuracy. These ancient scribes didn't just see dots of light. They recorded the relative sizes of the planets and even documented the existence of celestial bodies that modern astronomy only discovered with the aid of powerful telescopes. How did a culture using reed styluses on wet clay know the precise compositions of distant gas giants? It suggests that the Sumerian astronomers were not merely observers, but heirs to a much older, more sophisticated legacy of cosmic mapping that we are only beginning to decode. Crossing the ocean to the Yucatan jungles, we encounter the Mayan timekeepers, a civilization whose obsession with the cosmic clock bordered on the supernatural. While our modern Gregorian calendar struggles to stay accurate over a few thousand years, the Mayan long count was designed to track cycles spanning millions. They didn't view time as a simple progression from yesterday to tomorrow, but as a complex, interlocking gear system of celestial alignments. Their calculations were so precise they could predict lunar eclipses and planetary conjunctions thousands of years into the future. To the Maya, the stars were not just scenery. They were the gears of a living machine. This mastery of the physical world wasn't limited to the stars above. It was baked into the very stones they walked upon. At El Castillo in Chichen Itza, a phenomenon challenges our understanding of ancient physics. When a person claps their hands at the foot of the great limestone staircase, the echo that returns is not a simple reverberation. Instead, the structure manipulates the sound waves to produce a distinct, chirping sound that perfectly mimics the call of the Quetzal bird. This isn't a happy accident. It is a masterclass in acoustic engineering. The ancient architects understood the properties of sound and frequency long before the birth of modern wave theory. But where did this explosive surge of genius come from? Across every major cradle of civilization, we find the same haunting story: the arrival of the civilizing gods. Whether Osiris in the Nile, Quetzalcoatl in the Americas, or Oannes in the Persian Gulf, the narrative remains eerily consistent. These figures are described as beings who arrived in the wake of a global catastrophe, emerging from the sea or descending from the heavens to find a humanity reduced to a primitive, shattered state. They did not just rule, they taught. They brought the blueprints for agriculture, the structures of law, and the complex mathematics of the stars. They are the recurring ghosts of a lost era, described not as gods to be worshipped, but as masters who preserved the embers of a dying fire. When we look closer at the physical evidence, the primitive label becomes impossible to maintain. In the quarries of Egypt and the Andes, we find drill marks and saw cuts in stones as hard as diorite. These are not the jagged scars of stone hammers. They are the clean, spiraling grooves of high-speed machining. Some marks indicate a feed rate that would require modern ultrasonic technology to replicate. These tools were the instruments of a priestly class that viewed the cosmos not as empty space, but as a living mathematical intelligence, a library of the soul where every star was a syllable in a grand universal language. Yet as we analyze these achievements, the tone shifts. This wasn't progress for the sake of luxury. As we look at the desperate precision of their work, it feels like a frantic attempt to preserve a vital truth before a coming darkness. They knew that the cycles they tracked so carefully were turning, and that the knowledge they held was the only thing that could survive. We are beginning to see that their greatest fear wasn't death, but the total erasure of truth. If this knowledge was so vital, why is so little of it left today? History tells us of accidental fires and the ravages of war, but a closer look suggests a more deliberate pattern of loss. The burning of the Library of Alexandria wasn't just a singular tragedy. It was a symptom of a global campaign to wipe the slate clean. From the destruction of the Mayan codices by colonial friars to the systematic dismantling of records in Mesopotamia, the Great Erasure feels less like chaos and more like a calculated policy. Were the hidden survivors, those shadowy gatekeepers of our modern narrative, purposely burying the evidence of our true potential? To control a population, one must first control its memory. By stripping humanity of its celestial heritage, these power structures ensure that we remain tethered to a narrow, linear view of progress, forever looking forward and never realizing we are merely retracing the footsteps of giants. Today, we call this forbidden archaeology. It is the collection of artifacts and anomalies that simply shouldn't exist according to the official timeline. When a researcher finds evidence of advanced technology in ancient stone, The response from the academic establishment is often a wall of silence or active suppression. These gatekeepers protect the status quo not out of a love for science, but out of a fear of total obsolescence. If we admit that the ancient architects possessed technology that rivals our own, the entire foundation of our societal structures begins to fracture. We are forced to confront a disturbing implication. Technological progress is not a straight line moving toward infinite glory. Instead, it is a circle, a wheel that turns with the slow, grinding precision of the stars. If ancient civilizations reached a peak of mastery only to vanish, it means we are not the first to stand on this summit. It implies that there is a ceiling to human achievement, or perhaps a recurring catastrophe that periodically resets the board. We look at our satellites with pride, yet the Mayan calendars and the Egyptian alignments whisper a persistent warning. We are nearing the reset point. The same astronomical cycles that the civilizing gods taught to the survivors of the last era are beginning to align once more. These weren't just calendars for planting crops, they were profound countdowns. The monuments were left as a message for a future version of humanity that could decode the warning signs etched into the earth. Remarkably, our most cutting-edge breakthroughs in quantum physics are finally beginning to mirror what the ancients wrote in their sacred texts. When we speak of non-locality, the observer effect, or vibrating strings of energy, we are merely translating the library of the soul into modern mathematics. The ancient architects didn't need particle accelerators to understand that consciousness is the fundamental fabric of reality. They encoded it into the geometry of their temples. They understood that the cosmos is a living, mathematical intelligence and that we are participants in its grand design. This realization suggests that the knowledge is stored within our DNA and the laws of physics, waiting for us to look beyond digital noise. As we stand on the precipice of our own technological singularity, we must stop looking at the past as a collection of primitive superstitions. We must start looking at it as a mirror. These ruins are not graves. They are reflections of our potential future. The silence of the sands is not an absence of sound, but a heavy, waiting presence. If the keys to our survival are indeed hidden, who is currently holding them? Are the hidden survivors still guiding our ignorance, or have we forgotten how to listen? The truth is that the ancient architects left the door unlocked. The maps are carved in granite and aligned with the stars. The only question that remains is whether we are ready to face what they knew, or if we are destined to become the next mystery for a future civilization to uncover among the ruins of our own steel and glass. The clock is ticking, and the gears of the cosmos never stop turning. We are the heirs to a legacy, and the time for remembering is running out.